Watched your X space last night. How do you keep your cool with people who don't understand what hypotheticals are? Those guys were bad faith actors. It's not that they didn't understand, it's that they were intentionally trying to. Please at least look a little into dual 140 millimeter intake fans if you want silent operation. Yeah, you would think that the dual 140 fans would be better than a bunch of 120s. However, I don't know if this computer will even be generating much heat. Like, I don't know how much heat the onboard hardware encoders and decoders even put out. Also, while recording or streaming, they're not even doing that encode decode. It should be fine. Yeah, and it's not like the CPU is being like maxed or anything. So my guess is it probably is decent. Or there's not a ton of heat that needs to be dealt with. Okay. Oh, okay. And then one final question. Was there any reason why the do I use NDI on my computer here upstairs? Why don't I just use an HDMI cable? Was there a reason a long time ago why I used NDI? Frame rate for larger monitor. Wasn't the reason 140 hertz? You said it was faster and more flexible. Maybe it was a long time ago. I think I just need... Remember that super expensive DVI card you use? Oh yeah, because capturing high quality HDMI maybe was harder back then? Okay. I think I can just use... Okay. I'm ordering a small HDMI cable just for these two. Okay. Because I don't think I ever need to use NDI. Yeah. I don't think I ever need to use NDI. I can still use OBS and just send, like, right click and broadcast this to... paste. I hope it does that, yeah. Okay. This is all I need for now, right? We're good on everything? I would love to talk with you about your take on generative AI. I am a AAA game dev and pretty against it. Well, I don't even know what generative AI means. Why did I click this? This is stupid. Okay. No shot. Would it actually let me order everything, get everything tomorrow? Because God, that would be so fucking based. Wow, Lawson Harrison, thanks for 20 bucks. Like AI art bozo? Why should it matter? Or why would you be against it? The fighting against like incoming technology is so pointless, especially when the technology like can proliferate so much. Like, how are you going to fight against AI art? Like, it seems like a... What do I feel like is there anything else I need right now in my life? Anything else I need to order? I don't think so. No. Oh, SSD. Oh, no. I got the drive. I'm against it in principle. I don't care about its usage commercially, nor am I afraid of it replacing me. Against it in principle. Okay. Get a cat scratching post? I already got one. This cat is out of control, though. Okay, what do we have for links right now? Georgia judge dismisses 2 criminal counts against Trump. Court filing shows. Dismiss true. Oh, 20 minutes. Bring those charges. Didn't have the authority to bring those charges, which related to the alleged filing of false documents in a federal court. Okay. So the 2, okay. So there's 8 other charges relating to it. Makes sense. Receipts. The guy who originally mixed this is having a meltdown because it's not pro-Trump and he is literally a socialist. Receipts in the comments.
Of the people in Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. Yeah! And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the dogs.
I updated my display name. I'm howling. It's stuck like this now and won't let me change it back. What the fuck? If you're reading this, fuck Trump. I'm literally a socialist. This is not a pro-Trump song. Benny Johnson can eat shit. Locked. This was the observation I made. Remember when we were looking at the Shane Gillis stuff, that it feels like it's almost impossible to make fun of Trump through quoting him and stuff, because everything involved is so ridiculous and wacky that.
And this is what's happening. People on television.
There have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
The people on television say my dog was taken.
Have we gone over the eating pet stuff? Was there literally no credence to any of the claims? So it seems to me that there are two sources for these claims. One is a guy who went to a city council meeting who just said it with no evidence at all. He just said it, and he also says a lot of crazy things. And then the second was there was a black lady on the street who looked like people said she just ate an animal, but there was no evidence for it. People just said it. Like, oh, I think we even watched this on stream, and I was like, she ate a cat? But then when I asked my chat, like, they were like, oh, well, she ate it before the video started rolling. And I don't think there was ever any evidence of her eating a cat. So I don't think... No. Oh, apparently she wasn't even Haitian or an immigrant. So I don't think there is... My understanding right now is I don't think there is any evidence at all of anybody eating any animals except for meat eaters eating. So I think it's just... I think it's the Joe Rogan cat litter box in schools thing where somebody just said it and it's just... Everybody's just repeating it now, but there's no evidence for any of this at all. Yeah.
And used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people on
I'm taking it from
television
the city
saying the
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the dogs.
This reminds me of the... I thought that this was making fun of Trump. I'm still not actually sure. This?
Tonight, I can report.
No, fuck. There was a tweet or something.
By the way, when Obama went on TV to announce that they'd killed bin Laden, he spoke...
Oh, no. Okay, it did come from that. Okay, this is what okay, yeah. Somebody tweeted this, but they didn't have the first part with Jimmy Kimmel, and then I retweeted it thinking it was making fun of Trump. But everybody in the comments and on Twitter was making fun of Obama and saying Trump was awesome. And then I thought that I got bamboozled, but then I think we found out that it originally did come from Jimmy Kimmel. So Jesus Christ.
For 9.5 minutes. Trump yesterday did 48 minutes on this. And for further comparison, we thought it might be fun to mash up Trump's speech about al-Baghdadi with Obama's about bin Laden, and we were right, it was.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead.
The United States launched a targeted operation against that compound.
They did a lot of shooting, and they did a lot of blasting, even not going through the front door. You know, you think you go through the door. If you're a normal person, you say, knock, knock, may I come in?
After a firefight, they killed Osama bin Laden and took custody of his body.
He died like a dog.
But his death does not mark the end of our effort.
A beautiful dog. A talented dog.
We give thanks for the men who carried out this operation.
And I don't get any credit for this, but that's okay. I never do. But here we are.
May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
And I'm writing a book. I think I wrote 12 books. All did very well.
I miss Mom's old boy.
Oh yeah, this is my tweet on it. This is my mindfuck moment. I retweeted this thinking the purpose of the video was to make fun of Trump, not praise him.
States has conducted an operation that killed
al-Baghdadi.
And that's why people love Trump. He doesn't read scripts carefully drafted by boring government bureaucrats. He authentically shares what he truly thinks.
Just bought this.
Was that first reply a bot? Well, he was the guy that tweeted the video. I don't know if this guy's a bot or a troll, but I see him a lot, I think. My guess is it's a bot or it's just a troll account. I doubt it's a real person. But I'm also mindfucked on this. I don't know. All these people that I see that are like doctor, professor, whatever, like all this shit. I never know if they're like, that look like fake people. I never know if they're just random people that have like dressed up in a suit for a picture, or if it's like an AI picture, or if it's just some... yeah, I have no idea. I can't tell. But this guy tweets a ton and gets a lot. But it's like all misinformation and stupid, like Trump suck off shit.
Guys, I just bought this house last month for 1.9.
I think I'm talking to both of these guys soon. I think we were in emails trying to set this up.
Alright, guys, I just bought this house last month for 1.925 million, and now I'm selling it for 2.25 million. Right? Mm-hmm. Quick 300 signed. Boom.
It's a wrap.
Sold. Ready? Imaginary champagne.
Hot tour on that.
All right. Sure. On my phone. All right, guys.
He's probably just lying. I don't know what the point why I'm watching this video. He's probably just making this up. If you also well, unless it's different state by state, if it's different state by state, I think all the information should be public, right? Do you think conservatives are going to be forever retards on a rope that we have to yank them every now and then to come back in line via civil wars? Or what do you think will be the future of our country with the insane Trump shit? Like, what if someone worse than Trump comes next? I don't know, bro. Good luck. Wouldn't the tax and fees on that be pretty high? I don't know if there's like a sales tax associated with buying homes like that. Closing costs wouldn't be applicable here either. Like, you could theoretically do this. I believe that closing costs are usually a percentage fee that goes to the seller or buyer. No, seller. But it's usually I believe these are closing costs on the loan. So if you buy in cash, I don't think you technically have like big closing costs.
What's up, Killa?
Hi, what's up?
You know, real estate stuff.
The big part of when somebody talks about closing costs, is that usually like the fees that you're paying on the loan from the bank? Do you have big closing costs if you buy in cash?
Closing costs, everything in cost. I mean, as it sounds, everything you're charged to close. So if the other seller is not like the principal, if they're using a broker or an agent or something, you have to pay them probably around
it's like 2 to 5%. Yeah,
2.5% to 3%. Right. Usually the total is 6. You have your own. Like, I don't think that Jack Doherty is a fucking licensed broker, so he had to pay his own listing agent as well 3%. So let's assume
can't you sell and buy and sell without agents?
Yeah, you can, for sure. You can buy and sell without agents. But I mean, you can do that. But the odds of him finding a seller finding a buyer that wasn't using an agent is usually pretty low, is what I would say. Not a lot of people are selling a house themselves, like taking the photos and listing it and doing everything. I'd be surprised if that was 1% of houses.
Ordinarily, I think I could agree with you, but I'm sure like if you're in the celeb world, it might be a little different, right? Like he might have known the buyer personally, or like if you're talking multi-million-dollar houses in Miami, maybe they're not listed in the same way. Like some people just go around looking and talking to people. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, I would say, I think it's pretty comfortable saying, man, if I had to guess.
But this video is probably bullshit. He's probably just making this up, right? Like that would be my guess.
I mean, if you know the state, you can find out super easily.
Yeah, that too. It should be listed with the county.
So it's a $300K profit that he made. So off of that, we're assuming that's short term.
For sure, it was 1 month. So.
And then it's just not as much as he thinks. It's like he's basically putting out there he made $300K. I think best case scenario is probably coming out of there with, I don't know, 200 maybe.
I mean, 200K in a month, I think is pretty good.
Yeah, I guess. But you have to also look at, did he finance that? Was it his own money? Because that's $2 million. That could have been making money for a month as well, right?
Closing costs include title fees and realtor commission. Our closing costs have nothing to do with the loan at all? Oh, in that case, maybe then fuck me, I guess.
Well,
wait, why do you have to repay closing costs when you refinance a home? I thought those could be pretty expensive. Is it just the fee?
Closing costs when you refinance a home is paying the appraiser to come and get a new accurate appraisal. It's paying for the attorneys to go and re-record a new deed that goes to the city. It's mostly attorneys. In that case, it's going to be mostly attorneys and bank fees.
Sure, but that sounds like if your loan is big enough, that sounds like basically negligible, right?
Well, actually, if you have a huge loan, it'll be
like if you're over like $500,000 and you can move your like interest rate by like over 1.5 it feels like you're always eating what, like $1,000, $2,000, because you probably just roll that over into the next.
I think an appraisal. I mean, it depends where you are, but I think you're looking at like somewhere between, if you're in like kind of a bumfuck place versus like someplace nice. Obviously, depending on the size of the property, like 500 to 1,000 for an appraisal for like a single family, and it could go higher. Like I think in Miami Beach, I wouldn't be surprised if you could be up to 1,500 for an appraisal, and then.
Like I'm seeing here, this is saying, yeah, and I've read these before. I guess I've never dug into it. Refinancing your mortgage costs anywhere between 2 to 5% of the amount of the new loan. Why would it be based on the amount of the new loan?
That I'm not sure about. I'm trying to think. There could be penalties on your existing loan for paying it off early. Mm-hmm. Some of them have that. Like if you refinance, that's paying it off early.
Yeah,
it sounds
payoff penalties. Yeah.
But I don't see any other reason there would be a penalty unless. I mean, for smaller loans, it would be like that, but not for bigger ones.
Huh, weird. I wonder why.
Oh, they're saying there that that's they're doing an origination fee when they're writing the loan. How old is that article?
2024.
I don't know how common that is. I mean, maybe if you're working with a mortgage broker.
You pay points to get a lower interest rate. What does it mean when you say you pay points?
So a point is it's a I think a BIP. It's like 1/4%. Okay, so you can pay let's say $10,000, and you can lower your mortgage interest rate from 5% to 4.75% if you do it.
And that money is just going into nothing. You're just paying for the lower interest rate.
Yeah, for the life of the loan, correct. You can do that.
Interesting. You can't pay that down to like 0.5% or something, right?
There was a story I was reading. I don't know if it was bullshit or not, but it was someone on Reddit asking for advice about basically having like a very interesting loan where their father had paid an enormous amount of money in points to the point where his loan was basically interest free. Mm-hmm. And he was like, what should I do here? And it was, I don't know, apparently he did some crazy shit. I've never done anything like that. Usually what happens whenever I've taken a loan on real estate in the past, I always do adjustable rate mortgages. I don't think it would make sense to do fixed rate mortgage, but...
Wait, you always do adjustable rate mortgages?
Always. Why is that? And usually interest only. Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about for commercial property.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
Okay.
no, even if you do it on a single family, I would do the same. And then the rates that you usually get, the most common programs are 5, 7, and 10-year adjustable rates, and the 5-year will give you the best rate and then the 10-year will give you the worst rate.
Mm-hmm.
So like you might get, I mean, back in the day, like if you could get like a 4.5 on a 5, you might be at like 5.25 for the 10. It would be the difference there, right? Because you're locking in that rate for a longer period of time.
Sure.
Thinking about.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, adjustable rate mortgages are atrocious for people living at like the edge. But I guess if you've got a lot of wiggle room or flexibility, there's nothing wrong with an adjustable rate. You can use it to your advantage.
Well, it's better. Also, it's cheaper, right? There's a reason. Obviously, you can get fucked, right? So
yeah.
let's say.
No, I agree that it's cheaper, but the problem is that it's cheaper for you or me, but for some people that were getting ARMs pre 2007. It wasn't that it was just cheaper, so that was the only way they could afford it was when it was at the bottom of where those adjustable rates would be. So anytime they would adjust upwards, they were like completely fucking destroyed. Yeah.
I mean, also, it's not necessarily better for us. If you time it wrong, you get omega fucked. Like imagine I had like a 5-1 arm and it was expiring like 3 years ago.
Sure.
Not good news, right? Because you're trying to refi and you're refining something that was at 3% and now it's at like 8.5.
Yeah,
not
sure.
good.
But it's not good in that we're just wasting more money. But for other people, it was like your life is destroyed now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't Destiny say before no one uses VRMs? I don't know why you said VRMs or if you meant ARMs. I think adjustable rate mortgages used to be relatively common prior to 2007. And I think now they're incredibly rare. I don't even know if banks offer adjustable rate mortgages for residential, like general conforming loans anymore. I don't know.
I don't know enough about it. I haven't bought any single families in a minute. I think you could probably still get one. The banks just want to make sure what they do is they qualify you at. I mean, I don't think adjustable rate mortgages were necessarily the problem with the 2007 crash. I think they weren't verifying income and things along those lines. Like adjustable rate mortgage is cheaper because in 5 years the bank gets to adjust it instead of the bank being stuck on the hook for 30 years at a certain interest rate. But I don't think that was the cause of the collapse of 2007.
No, it wasn't the cause, but I think it allowed you to shove a few more of those bullshit mortgages through the bank. It like gave the underwriters a little bit more security because you might be able to get that adjustable rate a bit lower than what the current prime was, which could bring the payment down enough maybe before they got to like the no income, no asset loans. I think it was just another like bullshit reason or another bullshit tool that people could use to sell more mortgages. But no, I don't think it was like the reason.
Actually, wait, when was the collapse?
It wasn't at end of 2007.
It couldn't have been that
housing market collapse USA.
I'm looking at the 30-year interest rate, and it only has gone down from like 2000 basically, and even after 2007, it just kept going down more.
Wait, show me. What are you looking at?
Like I'm looking at the 30-year here. That's whoops. There.
Oh. Wait. 2008 financial crisis. Wikipedia.
I think it just has to be that they stopped qualifying people. Like they're getting too fucking wild.
What was the date of like in the Big Short? That was the name of the movie, right? When did the big thing happen when the guy was like, "Oh, shit"?
Well, that would be when
the climax was the bankruptcy
of
Lehman Brothers, which was September 15th, 2008. So that would be the end of 2008. Okay, it's 2007, 2008 financial collapse.
But like, if you look at this, it almost doesn't make sense, right? Because if you go and you look, like,
30-year
how much of the rates changed here, right?
Mortgage
the lowest
coverage.
they ever were was like 2003. They were like 5.5 for a little bit, but most of the time it was between 5.5 and 6.5.
Wait, what's your issue with this graph, or what do you think doesn't make sense?
So I don't think adjustable rate mortgages were the issue here. Like, there's no like major thing like, holy shit, I bought into a 5-year adjustable rate mortgage that was at 2% and now it's at 10. Like, you can look here and be like, it actually only kind of went down from that period.
Wait, we're looking at the 30-year fixed rate though, right?
Yeah. I mean, the adjustable rate is going to follow this for the most part. It's not like these were. This was the interest rate you could borrow at, essentially.
30-year fixed rate mortgage average in the United States. And you're saying that...
Let me see if we can go to an adjustable 5-year. If they have that here, they should.
Okay, 5 to 1 year adjustable rate mortgage
Here
average in the USA.
I just linked it there.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
So fuck, why doesn't this go back farther? That's annoying.
Wait,
Like,
what is the gray background? What does that mean?
That's the collapse, right?
Well, I'm looking at the 30-year fixed chart. There's a gray backgrounds as well.
What is the gray background?
Does that just mean recessions? Typically are denoted by the gray area. Doesn't a recession have to be at least like 2 quarters? Or maybe they are minimum 2 quarters. This is from December to...
Shaded areas indicate U.S. recessions, bottom left.
Okay.
Yeah. But like, if you look at this, it's like we weren't seeing like insane shit, right? It's not like it was like super low and then it got jacked the fuck up. And then as the crisis started happening, 2007, rates started dropping. So if that was the case, it's like, hey, we're adjusting your shit. Congratulations, it's lower now, right? There was something. They must have been doing teaser rates, which I think they don't do now.
Well,
right?
I think
now
what I think what you would have to see is what you would have to see is you would have to see the percentage of mortgages that were adjustable rate mortgages, right?
I think actually that is what it is. I think they were doing teaser rates. It's like the first 5 years, I'm just going to give this to you at 1%. Okay. And then after that, we're just going to adjust to whatever is normal interest at that point because you're qualified. That must have been like the bullshit that they were doing because there's nothing else. Like 1% jump wouldn't be like, oh, I'm fucked. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. People are saying I'm correct. Thank fucking Christ for a change. Yeah. Banks still.
Well, what's the difference? I mean, a teaser rate is still a type of adjustable rate mortgage, no?
Yeah, but it's like they don't. That's like wild shit, though.
What do you mean?
Well, like right now, if you want to get an adjustable rate mortgage, I can tell you what interest rate you're going to get. Like around right now, you'll probably be able to get something around 6,
like crazy,
maybe a little bit less, right? You can't get one at 1 or 2. But before, mortgage brokers were just so desperate to get any business whatsoever that they were working with lenders who are like, fuck it, we'll just do the first 5 years, the first 3 years at 1%, and then we'll adjust.
Oh, sure.
Right?
I think it's important, though, to understand that in the context of all of this, there wasn't any one singular thing to blame. Like, I think everybody was acting rationally at every part of this transaction, which is why it blew up into such a huge thing. Because let's say that you're doing that 5 to 1, the 5-1 adjustable rate mortgage, and it is a teaser, and it is crazy low. Technically,
no, you shouldn't have been So you know the problem is
what?
You shouldn't be able to get that because what they were doing is they were qualifying you on the teaser rate instead of what it would be if it amortized today.
Yeah, but that's okay.
That's not okay. You're not like you can't do that.
You could though.
That's wild.
That was the issue. The reason why it was okay.
Well, I mean, yeah.
The reason why it was okay, I believe, was because real estate prices were climbing so fast that you could leverage yourself in the stupidest ways into a home, and that even when those rates adjusted, if you can afford it, you could always like take out a line of credit or refinance something because you have so much equity in this asset that's appreciating so much that you're always going to be okay. I think that was one of the big things that mindfucked everybody is every player along the way was incentivized to make in the whole what were bad decisions because individually they were good decisions, right? Like, let's say somebody says, I can get you in a home that you definitely can't afford, that's $200,000. You're going to get fucked when this rate adjusts. It's like, okay, well, by the time I get fucked, this $200,000 home is going to be worth $650,000. So, I mean, what are you going to do to me? Like, oh no, I'm underwater on my $200,000 mortgage. I'm just going to refi or do a HELOC or do whatever 50 other ways to pull money out of this massively appreciating asset, and I'll be A-okay, you know?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously that's what we're doing. I'll say, like, right now, like, I'm looking at buying a building in California, and I only do, for the most part, I try to only do interest-only loans because, why play with your own money if you can do it at the bank? And they don't. Way they
mean you're setting your money on fire by just? Sorry, my bad.
No, like the way they qualify you now is they qualify you as if it's fully amortized. Meaning, let's say that I can buy a building. Let's say it's $1 million, and I want to put 20% down. Or sorry, let's say it's $1.2 million and I want to borrow $1 million or whatever the fuck, right? So let's say that you can get like a 5.5% rate. So I can pay $55,000 a year to borrow that $1 million. Okay, can I afford 55 grand a year? Absolutely. But they don't, even though those are the payments that you will be paying for the first 5 years, they don't qualify you based on that anymore. What they do now is they say, okay, what happens in 5 years? So in 5 years, you would no longer be interest only. You would be interest plus principal, and we would adjust at the current rate plus 1%. So instead of it being $55,000 a year, your payment would be $90,000 a year. So can you do that? And that's now how they qualify you. They never qualify you on the pre-adjusted part. It's always off the second adjusted part, the first adjustment, basically. Can you handle that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Chatters out there complaining, saying, is anyone even paying attention to this? You're destined. Okay? It is your destiny to be poor for the rest of your life.
One of the issues that I have with
if
my,
you have
it's not
no
that they're
interest
just
about
bored
this-
of the content. One of the issues that I run into is I do a wide variety of content. I know why streamers make different channels now, because anytime you start doing something that somebody doesn't want, people get mad. It's like, just come back later. Just come back at a different time. I don't want to make 50 different channels for all my different things.
Yeah, it's just so fucking annoying.
But it can't be rational to just expect prices to keep going up at the same rate forever. No, kind of, but you have to play along with the market. The issue is that if you decide to be, we'll say, I don't like the term rational or irrational actor because it implies different things to different people. But let's say that you decide to be like a long-term rational, a long-term logical, smart person. You're like, well, I'm going to be smart and responsible and not fuck around because I know this house of cards is going to come tumbling down. Well, if you're a bank, you're probably going to go out of business because everybody else is selling crazy loans and now you're fucked. If you're an individual consumer, you're going to be behind the 8 ball on all of your neighbors because they're all moving into hugely expensive houses that they're going to be able to sell in the future that are also hugely expensive, and now you're just fucked. And if you're, if you're an investor, you're fucked because now everybody else is turning massive profits, basically guaranteed. You get fucked. That's the issue. And maybe you're right. Remember, the other issue is that it's not just a function of being correct, okay? Every single person can make correct predictions about the market. Everybody can tell you. I can tell you with 100% certainty whether or not a stock will go up or down, okay? The true test is the timing. That's the big part about the making money. Because you might be correct. A person might say, I'm not going to do anything with this fucking housing shit because it's going to blow up. And they might be correct, but they might make that prediction in 2003. And they're going to be financially so far behind a lot of the other actors that are going to be part of that industry now. Let's say somebody looks at that guy and is like, well, fuck you, I'm going to ride this wave and see how far we go. And they go until 2006. Well, that person just fucking made bank and now you're fucked, right? Like there are people that made out well in the financial crisis that ended up selling before. Just like there are people right now that are disgusting sitting in their homes with their fucking like 1.7% interest rates or whatever the fuck, like right in today's.
Oh, by the way, have you seen there's a website where people can sell their house with the interest rate of their existing loan?
Yeah, as long as you have, I believe it's an assumable mortgage, right? You can do that. Yeah.
Yes. How interesting of a business is that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have an assumable mortgage on my house. If anybody in Nebraska wants to make my kid homeless and make me a sick offer. What triggered the collapse? I think basically housing prices started to peak. I don't know what the specific thing was, but housing prices basically started to taper off, and that. I wish everybody in your mind, you need to intuitively build in this concept of what priced in means. Because asset prices don't just reflect what people think a thing is worth. They reflect what people think a thing will be worth in a future point of time compared to what they think other things will be worth in a future point of time as well, right? So in the markets, it all priced in this idea of going up, 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 up. But then as soon as things stopped going up, that's why you got this huge downward adjustment, and everything was built upon the idea of things continuing to increase. And when they stopped, everything became catastrophic. That's why sometimes your favorite company that you might own stock in, they might post quarterly earnings and they might be positive, and then the value of the stock still goes down. Well, the reason why is because they weren't as positive as people thought they would be, meaning that they had priced in a better quarterly report.
That was NVIDIA just now. Is that what we're doing? Are we shilling that's...
Are we? NVIDIA, my NVIDIA started going up again, but NVIDIA's been a wild fucking ride. Holy shit.
Well, NVIDIA, I think they beat their expectations, but they didn't beat it enough and the stock tanked.
Housing prices tapered off because there were less people that were qualifying and able to even obtain these crap loans. Demand plummeted. People couldn't afford their existing mortgages, and having to sell added more supply. Yeah, it was like a thing that basically as soon as it started to taper off, everything was like destroyed because there was this catapulting of valuation of houses that everything kind of relied on.
What do you So this whole idea, I think we brought it up, or someone brought it up before. It's Kamala's plan for like people over $100 million. This taxing of unrealized gain. How do you picture it working, and how will it not just be easily bypassable by anyone? So, I guess step one: how does it work, and should it also apply to?
I don't
real
think
estate?
it's ever happening. I don't know if they released
Yeah,
like a real plan for this. I don't know if they ever released anything like solid. Yeah, we're up on our Nvidia somehow, even though they lost like 10% a week ago. I don't know what happened. It came back.
I don't think there's a way of doing it, of how, they're saying that you're going to do it. Like, I understand the logic, the idea that, you want to tax Elon if he's borrowing all this money. You want to tax that. But I'm not sure there's a mechanism that can do it, because the problem is it's not actually income.
Have I talked to you about that basis step up? Somebody made an idea on Twitter, and I thought it was a perfect idea. You can only take out a loan against your tax basis for any investment. So if you want to take out a loan against an investment without selling it, then you have to step the basis up and pay the tax on it.
How does that work when you're issued shares? Like, for instance, Elon Musk recently got he got issued a fuck ton of shares, right?
Yeah.
But even though he was issued those shares, I don't think he pays. You can do this thing, and you don't get taxed until you sell them. It's an election.
Yeah, I think that's fine. But I think that if you're going to take out a loan against them, then you should only be able to take out a loan against your tax basis in whatever you get.
What's the name of this fucking election? 83B. I think that's what it is. 83B election. Yeah. Okay. I feel like it would just not be possible to do it.
I feel like it would be. I think it would be. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's imagine it with stock.
Sure. I think that this is the one area that if you did it like this, I think it would be super simple. If you go to your I imagine your tax basis in any stock, does it always match the cost basis?
Well, again, we're dealing with billionaires here. We're not dealing with me and you, right?
Sure. I don't know that
me and you, we don't matter here. We're talking about Elon Musk. Elon Musk has not bought any of his Tesla shares. Do you agree with that?
Yes, but I don't know if when those are awarded to him, if he is paying taxes on them as they're given to him. Like
I wouldn't think so.
Like if I were to give you stock, you would have to pay the.
No, I would do an 83B election on it.
So your tax basis is zero for an asset you receive?
If you're, well, again, it depends on if you're part of the company or not, but this election allows you to say, hey, I want to defer paying taxes on this at the current market price. Instead, I want to wait until I sell it.
Okay, hold on. Let me read.
This is super common for startup founders.
Hey, Dan, what's up?
Hi.
I have a question. So I've heard a lot of people talk about this, rich people, they like leverage their personal assets to take out these loans and sort of defer their tax liability. But like, why is this? I've never seen any numbers on how big a problem this actually is. And why? Because they have to pay back those loans with after-tax income anyway, right? So what's the big deal?
Wait, are you asking a rhetorical question to test him or make a point, or do you not know at all?
Yeah, I'm just genuine. I've tried to look for people articulating this. They just say, this is bad because they're leveraging their personal assets.
Oh my God, are we about to school the econo boy?
Please school me. And I was going to tell you about the unrealized. You asked a question about how that was implemented.
The answer fundamentally comes down to one thing, and it's the same reason I do interest-only loans. $1 million today. Do you know how much that's worth?
$1 million today?
$1 million today. You know how much $1 million is worth in 10 years or 20 years?
A little over double. I mean, every 7 years, right?
No, it's worth less when you're borrowing it. That's the whole idea. right?
Oh, I thought you
Borrowing
meant
a
invested.
million,
Sorry.
yeah. So if you borrow $1 million today, that is $1 million that someone of real purchase power has taken and given to you. But if you pay that $1 million back in 10 years from now, that $1 million is no longer worth $1 million. So this deferring of huge amounts of income by slowly selling stock versus doing it all in large tranches allows you to smooth it out over the course of your time, right? So instead of selling and getting to this, maximum threshold or hitting certain things along those lines, you can take your time. And also, $1 million in 10 years is going to be less than $1 million today. So that's why, it's good.
Yeah. I see
think
what you're
so.
saying.
Well, so I think the issue, kind of boy, is if you have invested money, okay, and your invested money is gaining in value, it feels kind of shitty, I think, to make somebody pay a tax on something that they can't even access, right? Like, okay, sure, my stock is gaining value, but like, I haven't even sold it. I haven't realized any of the gains. I haven't created a taxable event that would allow me to sell money to pay for the taxes you want to charge me. So like, are you going to force me to sell this, right? But it feels kind of like a weird loophole when it feels like a rich person is basically sneaking into the bank and saying, can I like withdraw this money for like a little bit and then I'll come back and deposit it later? That's what the loan feels like. You've basically found a way to realize the gain without a taxable event. Yeah, I think it's kind of what the feeling is.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I guess my thought was always like, ultimately we would imagine some inflation adjustment over time, and they're paying back this money with after-tax income anyway. But I guess I'm still stuck on it's probably not an aggregate problem. Now, the unrealized capital gains proposal, Dan, you had asked like, how are they even going to implement it? And that's something they did explain, I think, in one of the Biden proposals, and I'm not really sure why. I guess I'm not really sure why it would be substantially different if it were proposed under a Kamala administration. Basically, the way that they proposed it was in a way that minimized all the potential problems with actually collecting the money. Like, how do we value these assets, right? Like, how do we try to avoid distortions in the market, things like this. And what they did was they said, if your portfolio is worth more than 100 million and it's in like more liquid public assets, then you're just going to pay whatever the tax is spread over a 5-year period. So if you have whatever, $10 million of unrealized capital gains, tax rate's 20%, they would take that $2 million and make you pay $400,000 a year for 5 years to help smooth out and, help for tax planning purposes. And then if you had under 80% public assets, hard to value private assets, they would do a deferral charge where they would tax you essentially additional capital gains tax at the point of realization. So you don't have to value those private assets, but once you actually sell those assets, you pay a boosted rate in realized capital gains tax.
Why would you do that? Why would you pay more tax? Like, that doesn't make sense, right?
Well,
like, if I had 100 shares in a stock today that I was just given, or if I bought it for $1 a piece, it doesn't matter. In 10 years, why would I pay anything more than the tax rate if I sold them?
The argument is that by taxing unrealized gains as well as capital gains and having some sort of deferral charge, you're minimizing what is arguably an inherent problem with realized capital gains taxation, which is the locked-in effect. Capital's not allocated quite as efficiently as it probably should be because of this distortionary locked-in effect. And so by boosting your realization tax, if you're locking your investment in and trying to avoid tax later, then you're collapsing that incentive by creating a disincentive to just holding to avoid taxation, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I thought, I'm the big guy who's like, I think that we should move a lot of taxation from selling to buying. I think that might be good because I see all these billionaires out there buying crazy shit, and the government...
Hold on. Somebody keeps posting this in chat. If someone takes out a loan, then they have to pay the interest on the loan, which means the amount in the future that is taxed will also be greater in nominal terms and may also be greater in real terms depending on the inflation rates. I don't understand what you're saying. Any interest that you're paying on a loan that you're borrowing against your own assets is going to be way less than the appreciation of those assets and however they're invested, right? You're not taking out a secured loan for like 7% interest. That's never happening, right?
I've heard that this isn't done, is that it's a the government doesn't want to do this. They don't want to disincentivize people to have maximum purchases in the economy. So it's always based on the money that you get versus the money you spend. They want you to fucking spend, because that's a huge economy, and they will never do anything to disincentivize spending. So any tax like that, like a sales tax, a national sales tax, just apparently always is not good. I suppose
We are going.
I think it's a good idea, but
Well, no, I mean, I think that, so ultimately there's just several bases that you can tax, and all taxes try to, I guess, like fundamentally try to get at different bases to tax. I think ultimately you should probably always just tax consumption, but the way that you would do that would probably be just allowing deductibility of investment and then just ratcheting the rates up on. Yeah, go on, Destiny.
Nope, keep going. My bad.
Yeah, I think you ratchet the rates up on your sort of consumption that you have reported year-to-year basis, and that's the best way to do it because you wouldn't be disincentivizing investment in that regard.
What is the argument against just getting rid of capital gains tax altogether and treating everything as normal income?
Well, this proposal that I'm talking about would do that. It would basically say all investments tax deductible, and you're only going to be taxed on what you take out for consumption. And I think that probably addresses maybe a more fundamental intuition people have when it comes to taxing the rich anyway, which is like, if a rich person builds a factory and hires 100 people, well, sure, I mean, he probably shouldn't be taxed for that investment because we would think that's like a pro-social outcome. But if a rich person buys, his 5th yacht, that's something where people are like, man, that's kind of fucked up. We got all these poor people and this guy's buying his 5th yacht. And so that's the thing that you're taxing.
No, I would
like
do both. I think you have to do both. I think that you're always, like, if I'm going to go buy a factory for $10 million, I think you're taxing that. Under my idea of what it is.
Yeah, but why?
I think you tax everything because if you can switch everyone's minds to the idea of you pay when you buy, the advantage being because I think I can grow this business to be a $1 billion company, and when I sell it, I don't pay a penny in tax. That's why.
I mean, I believe in a VAT. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having basically like sales taxes as long as it's broad base and, it's smoothly administered. Obviously, the retail sales tax falls into some pitfalls, but overall, though,
forget all that because it's never going to happen. There was a plan called fair tax, and it's never going to happen. But why not just get rid of capital gains? That special.
Well, that's
tax
what I'm
treatment?
describing. That's what I'm describing.
Just get rid of it. Everything's normal income. That's it.
Well, because it'd be way, 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 way higher, right? I don't think a lot of people would be happy with that. No.
When you say get rid of the capital gain, do you mean
he means just treat it all as ordinary income? It would just be added to your, like W-2 basically, or just your ordinary income basically for the year.
Yeah, no more capital gains at all. Just regular income, everything. That's it. Everyone's treated the same, basically.
Well, a lot of people have proposed basically just making the capital gains, tax bracket the same as the income tax. I mean, that's probably better from a tax optimization perspective. Some people might say, obviously, no, it's better to lower the rates on capital because you're disincentivizing some amount of investment. But I mean,
you've already been taxed on that money once. No, you haven't.
Do you get how much good efficiency do you get from having the exact same tax treatment versus the lack of investment of taxing capital at higher rates? So I wish you could say.
I feel like kind of like how Republicans have just demonized so much, like our foreign policy. Now they're all just like hardcore isolationists where all intervention is bad, and now you can't have that conversation at all. I wish that on the Democratic side, I feel like Republicans poison the conversation, like trickle down so much with how they treat like rich people. I think the politicians are doing a good job for the most part. I'm not too as sure about Kamala, but getting away from this idea of like demonizing wealthy people. I wish that we could have conversations about tax policy without it feeling so retributive, or vexatious, and I run into this so much because people, I'm sure you've heard somebody say like, well, why don't you just pay more taxes or whatever? It's like, I don't think paying taxes is good. I think that having social programs is good. I think they should be funded as well as possible, right? And whatever the tax base needs to be to fund those programs, like that's, that's what you bear, You want to go to the gym because you just like to suffer. You go there because you want to build muscle, right? Same thing with taxes. You don't pay taxes because there's some moral good in just giving your money to the government. It's because you ideally fund social programs. And people just like swing the fuck out over like Amazon didn't pay anything in taxes and blah. It's like, well, if they reinvested all their money in their business, like that's fine. And as much as, on the left, we get tired of hearing about business owners helping the economy and everything and trickle down, like it is good when a business owner reopens or opens a new business and hires people. Like that's a good thing. We should all celebrate that. But yeah, so there's so much morality tied to every single fucking type of income tax. Like the dumbest thing in my mind about this $100 million plus income tax, wealth tax, whatever the fuck, is that you're expending all this political capital on something that my guess is probably wouldn't even raise that much money. Like anytime like how many people are we actually even affecting here? Like,
I think that there's
the better plan would be to say that if you're gross, there's like that adjusted gross income or whatever. Like insanely rich people can do wild shit to mask their income. I understand that, but at the end of the day, you can say if you or any assets that you have control of, corporations, etc., if you have received more than $100 million in value, all additional revenue generated after that $100 million that is realized is taxed at ordinary income levels. Like that, I think would be.
Yeah, but I don't even know how much money. Like if you're anything that's
you don't think there's a lot of people that making over $100 million a year?
No, not that are. No, I don't think so.
I think
you're not going to raise. You're not going to raise very much tax on. I mean, people have done if you literally just confiscated like all income, over $100 million or something, and assuming that would have no effect on people's labor outcomes and stuff like that, it just wouldn't raise that much money. I mean, the point that what Destiny's saying is, oh well. I just think it's important to fund these social services. Obviously, if we just intuition this out or like sort of think about it theoretically, let's just say that you had a society with no rich people, but a lot of middle income people. Nobody was making more than $10 million a year. Everyone would, inequality was basically very low in this society. Well, ideally, we wouldn't just have no welfare state. Like, oh, now there's no rich people, so because all our taxes kick in at over however much income, we just can't afford to fund anything. Like you need to have broad-based taxation or you're not going to raise the amount of revenue you need. And even if you could, just taxing rich people, well, if all rich people are gone, you don't want to just have to defund your entire welfare state, right?
Yeah.
That's why all these Nordic countries with high welfare, they have broad-based taxation. Like people pay a shitload of tax in those countries, but they get a lot of services in exchange.
Do poor people pay a lot of tax also?
I think a decent chunk.
I mean,
but
it's the VAT rate alone is like over 25% in those countries, right? So that's going to tax directly.
I guess the question is, what's the effective, like?
Yeah, the issue in the United States is nobody actually knows what any of our effective tax rates are. It's very obfuscated because of all the tax schemes that we have. Like poor people legitimately believe sometimes, like a guy making $30,000 a year thinks that he's actually paying like 20% income tax, and a lot of these people are literally negative, like they're getting money back from the government and they don't even realize it because of the EITC or because of child tax credit or whatever else. It's our taxes are too complicated.
Yeah, taxes are too complicated. I mean, this is. You can look up, there's this thing called a tax expenditure, which is basically a tax, it's like all the tax deductions and things like that we give out, all the ways to discount your taxes. Like that's what a tax expenditure is. And if we got rid of all tax expenditures, or at least the value of tax expenditures today, it would be like well over $1 trillion a year in additional revenue raised.
If we got rid of all wait, say that again?
If we got rid of all tax expenditures, so if we just taxed every single dollar that you receive completely equally, right?
Got rid of all, are you talking about getting rid of all the exemptions?
Yeah, getting rid of all the tax exemptions, tax deductions, just everything. We totally simplified our tax code.
Mm-hmm.
That would be like almost $1 million or $1 trillion a year extra in revenue.
Sure.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, assuming no external impacts on markets or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, are you saying if you have a business, anything you spend, you can no longer write off?
No.
Yeah.
Well, maybe write-offs, but at the very least, like no more standard deduction, no more like child tax credits, no more earned income tax credits, stuff like that.
Yeah, and just all the the mortgage interest rate deduction, and there's like so many your 401k, just like there's so many different sort of tax incentives and tax expenditures in the budget.
Did you know it's kind of one of those unfair things? So did they like try to cut down a little bit on the mortgage tax thing recently?
I don't remember. I mean, I know that Trump raised the standard deduction, so a ton less people use it now, but I haven't heard about the mortgage interest rate deduction specifically changing.
I thought that they cut it down, like the amount that you could write off of mortgage interest per year, like it was changed. But the interesting part is that it only affects you if you own your house personally. So if if you own commercial real estate, by nature of that fact, any expense you spend is limitless of the cap, right? So if I pay $1 billion in interest on a building, I can write all of it off because it's all a business expense. But that, didn't apply for your home.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of weird things in our tax code like that, you know? I mean, right down to like in the renewables industry, like the way that we subsidize renewables is through tax credits. Like we can't just, like the government just really doesn't want to write checks, right? It's like, we'll give you tax cuts, but we won't just write a check so that you're obviously like your net sort of social contribution goes down, right? You're not paying as much net to the government because you're getting the cash. The government just doesn't want to do that in America. Instead, it's like, oh, complicated tax equity investment scheme to lower your tax rate if you invest in renewables. It's like, my God, just it'd be so much simpler just to write a check for people who, produce renewable energy or build renewable energy projects, right?
Maybe.
But
I don't know if that's necessarily true. Because at that point, you're doing all the calculations when you submit your taxes versus the government doing them after, right?
well, like for instance, it's different on like the residential side versus the you could say utility scale, like the larger projects, right? Because on the residential side, at least my understanding is that when you put like solar panels on your roof or whatever, obviously you're going to get a bill from your, the guys who built, put the solar panels on your roof or whatever. And let's just say it's $45,000 or whatever, right? It's like, okay, well, you're going to go to the government and say, hey, I spent $45,000 retail on this, solar battery system, whatever. That's eligible, according to the government, for 30% tax credit, which isn't fully refundable, but you can, cap out your tax credit and just use it the next year or whatever. There's some scrutiny on those expenses. There isn't such thing as like qualified expenses, and you can get audited, and obviously they might really try to look into that. But for the most part, you just submit the cost of, you put in the cost of your solar array on your house, and they give you the tax credit. And it's not really, that complicated or fraudulent a system. And, the due diligence on like a commercial deal is all done by banks in general. But even if you just cashed it all out, you built this $1 billion plant, we're going to give you $300 million in cash. The simplification of your deal system probably means so many more of those projects end up getting made. It's mostly deadweight loss, most likely, paying all these tax consultants and tax accountants when you probably don't otherwise need to do that.
Sure, that might be true, yeah. I feel like there's a lot of that in healthcare and insurance, or I'm just retarded, but it feels really difficult to figure out, and there's a lot of people negotiating all that stuff in the middle that maybe you could cut all that out with at least a public option or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's like materially what deadweight loss is, right? It's like we're paying a tax lawyer to look over the exacting nature of whether or not we qualify for this complicated subsidy, when in reality, we could just not do that, right? Like, that talented lawyer could be, doing something we would consider maybe more productive, right? But obviously, obviously some of these regulations and tax deductions we're gonna think that they're good things or they're pro-social. It's similar to, like you said, people want to tax the rich sort of retributively, and I mean, I guess inequality is definitely a bad thing, right? And so at least like very high levels of inequality. And so
yeah, but it sucks that we don't have a good mind for like what is even happening in society right now in terms of like who's paying what. Like they'll talk about like the top 1% or whatever, made X percentage of income and how horrible or evil it is, but like they don't mention that like the top, like I think the top 50, the top half earners in the US pay like 98% of all the income taxes. I think the bottom half pay like less than 2%, but I don't think anybody knows that intuitively. There's just this mind, especially, and people like Warren Buffett have contributed to this a lot, because I think there's that one quote that gets thrown around a lot where he's like, my secretaries pay more in tax than me. And it's like, well, I mean, kind of, but we're missing a lot of nuance here when we say things like this, Yeah, and then all the tax policies just end up feeling incredibly punitive is what it sounds like when people talk about it, and nobody's like honest about what we should even be doing with our taxes or our spending, and nobody has any idea what the impacts are. It's all just like a self-flagellating or abusing people with our tax system. It's just fucking annoying.
What would be the negative effects of taxing the shit that rich people buy? So as an example to this, like basically certain types of vehicles, certain types of boats.
I don't think we should. I don't know why. Just tax it normally. Why does there have to
Let's.
be like an extra special fuck you tax on it? Like,
I mean, my
Well,
my
because the
income
idea is that
tax.
those people will pay the fuck you tax, almost as a Veblen good method of doing it. Like, imagine buying a Ferrari. You have to pay an extra 200K when you buy a Ferrari.
Yeah, but it's just easier. It's easier to tax it on the back end, especially if you have, good state capacity and let's say a reasonably understandable tax code, right? So like instead of having like essentially an adjustable VAT on the front end, where I don't even know how that would necessarily be, truly enforced. You could just say deduct all investment, anything that thus after investment, all that money is used for consumption. And so from your perspective, it's like, oh, I want to tax like the rich guy's Ferrari purchase. It's like, well,
well, you guys
you're
do
only
this? I have
purchasing
to-
a Ferrari.
I gotta run downstairs
Yeah,
and get a package. Holy fuck! I'll be back.
It's like you're only purchasing a Ferrari if obviously you have significant consumed income that year. So just tax the consumed income instead of having a front end tax on wealthy people, like
but that
luxurious
affects everyone.
consumption.
If you start taxing income consumable, right? That's not just for rich people.
Well, everyone should pay tax, right? Like probably broader, slightly broader
I don't
based
necessarily
taxes.
think so. I don't think poor people should necessarily have to pay tax.
Well, but if their net sort of, let's say if their personal household accounting is such that they get more money from the government than they pay in tax, then having a broader based tax system that's simpler is going to be better both for the enforcement of that tax collection for equality purposes and for obviously the poor person who's getting net welfare from the government. So it's just simpler on both ends.
I guess we'll see. I mean, a lot of rich people, the reason they buy shit isn't because they're super interested in what it is. Like someone who goes out and buys $1 million fucking Lamborghini, okay? They're not doing it because it is 10 times of a better vehicle than a Ford Focus RS or 20 times a better vehicle.
Yeah, of course.
They're doing it to show that they've spent $1 million. That's the whole idea. And if we can give some of that profit not just to the company but also to the government, I think that works the same and is still fine.
Well, if you're shifting, you're going to be shifting consumption in my system significantly, right? Because again, you're taxing that Ferrari purchase at a pretty high rate, and then you're taking that money and then distributing it in the form of, various social programs, right? And so that money is going to get distributed in this system that I'm describing too.
Is this literally the fair tax thing that went nowhere that you're doing? Because I like that thing too. I don't know why people didn't like it, but apparently it wouldn't have worked. I mean, because otherwise it seems like it would have gone somewhere.
I don't think the fair tax was, well, the fair tax, I guess I'm not sure what the whole proposal was. I think it was like replacing the income tax with a sales tax. And
that is what it was. And then everyone who made less than like 50K a year would get a check back at the end of the year for like 5K. And
I knew that, but the problem is number one, they don't do deductibility of investment. Number two, it was a flat rate. And then number three, they had this insane enforcement mechanism. It's like totally Republican bullshit, the way they wanted to enforce this tax collection. Because the way they wanted to enforce it was essentially have states collect the tax and then send the revenue that the states collected to the government. And it's like, why the fuck are we doing this? This is clearly just an attempt to, make our government so inefficient that we can't collect any taxes, so we can't fund any programs. Classic Republican tactic. Make all these welfare programs really shittily administered, so everyone's going to hate them, so that people don't want to have these programs around anymore. And they just try to do that on the revenue side as well all the time with defunding the IRS. That's kind of how I viewed that plan. It was a very like net negative plan if you think about that. And I think if you did the accounting, I'm remembering this is coming to me now. If you did the accounting on like the net taxes paid by poor people, they actually go up under this plan because it's a flat tax plus the current programs that we give to poor people are more generous, and we tax rich people currently much more aggressively than under the fair tax proposal. So I don't know. It sucks. Unfortunately, I do think the Democrats have better at this point, and I don't know how people would feel about this. I do think the Democrats have better tax policy than the Republicans, especially with the Republicans leaning so hard into things like tariffs and whatnot. It's like, tariffs are the 10% universal tariff plan under Trump. That would be way worse for the market than than the unrealized capital gains tax. At least that'd be my thought. But
Interesting.
Interesting stuff. Well, anyway, that was the unrealized capital gains. That's all I came in here to talk about. The way that the Biden plan at least implements the unrealized capital gains tax, it's like it's the best way to do what is probably not a good idea. So it's not like totally catastrophic, but I don't know. It's better than the universal tariffs from Donald Trump. So anyway, but I'll talk to you later, bud. See ya.
Bye. Just me and you guys now. Trump. There will not be another debate with Kamala Harris. Oh, banana phone. Hold on.